My name is Eric Van Horn. I bought my first franchise in my 20s, and since then, I've owned 6 brands with 25 stores in 8 states. I've also helped 1,000 people find the right franchise for them. People like us who are not cut out for the 9 to 5 and like to work smarter, not harder. How do we find the right franchise, buy it, grow it, sell it, and how do we do it in a way to own the business without it owning us? Those are the questions, and I'm on a mission to give you the answers. Welcome to Franchise Secrets. Welcome to the Franchise Secrets podcast with your host, Eric Van Horn, and today's guest is Christian Pillat. He is a franchisee, and then he also owns a company called Transitiv that helps franchisors and in turn franchisees on big data management and does some really cool, magical stuff that only someone with a big technology background would probably understand. But we do understand how it's helpful to have the right data to help make informed decisions as a business owner. And that's at the end of the day, what that does. So Christian, excited to talk to you, man. I've enjoyed our conversations over the last couple months, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into Transitiv. We're looking at using that company, your company, in one of the franchisor brands that I own in the roofing space. And then we were just talking how helpful it is for franchisees to have access to that type of data. And there's just not a lot of franchisors out there, franchisees that have access to that kind of data. So I'm excited to get into that part of it. Before we get into that, I want to know who you are, how you got your entry into franchising. So go ahead.
I started out, actually, I've just always been entrepreneurial. I started 2 e-commerce companies, one called Vacation Food Source, one called Hiker Feed. And I shipped food to people on like the Appalachian Trail, people going to vacation homes, and it was delivered the day they arrived. I had used a supplier that ended up being bought by Marriott Hotels, and I was very quickly out of my first company. They were basically like, "Go away, little boy. We don't need your."
They didn't give you like a big pile of
of our
cash
revenue.
when they told you to go away?
No, nothing like that. It was just like, we're not going to service your business anymore. So I was either going to build a food shipping business, which didn't seem exciting at the age of 20, 21,
So
or I could.
what was your
What's that?
big lesson in that? Like that, the thing that you took away from that thing?
I took away that you can, regardless of age and capitalization, you can still capitalize on an opportunity. My biggest takeaway was that every industry was getting digitized in some way. And there are all these little miniature opportunities that you can just take advantage of. And those miniature opportunities can actually make a ton of money for people. So coming out of that, I was just like, okay, I kind of got beat up by a big boy. I don't really know what I'm doing. I actually got a serving job for a few months on the border.
Dude, that's awesome though. I mean, you're probably making good money or about ready to make good money in that.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then
I'd put $3,000 into it and I was making like 40 grand.
that's the hustle. That's what we do as entrepreneurs. You get kicked and you do whatever it takes to get started again. So serving at on the border.
Yeah, serving it on the border, started looking for jobs. I happened on a company called Kigo. I was basically, they may have had like 7 people. I was like their 3rd or 4th full-time employee. And I was effectively an intern just trying to help them get started. I got introduced to franchising and this whole magical world of franchising. And I was like, wait, there are these repeatable business models out there that you can just like invest in and then they technically cash flow. And I was like, this is really cool. And it's also actually very repeatable on the vendor side, where you can develop these crazy advanced systems for franchisors and actually give franchisees, these local business owners, access to systems that only enterprises and Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies have access to. And so that was like my first epiphany. And at Kigo, I got into what's called digital product management. So I owned their local listings and SEO products and just built local listings and SEO solutions for franchisors. So that was my entry into franchising, and I worked there for about 4 years. Left there, started my own agency. It was called Untitled. In 2018, we were ranked as the number 5 franchise marketing agency. I actually sold that in December of 2019, and then I started at Transitiv in January.
So Kigo, you were with them, left them, started your own competing business, competing with them.
Similarly competing, I did a joint venture deal with a guy in Germany who had developed an ad management platform, so more technology based, less agency.
So less agency,
And
you did a JV deal with a guy that you met in Germany. Where I'm going with this, because I want to expand us as franchisees, get pigeonholed into thinking we're a franchisee and we have all these gates around us, and that's all that we can't do anything beyond that. Instead of thinking, how can we use what we know and expand out of there? I have a lot of friends that have become vendors to franchisors. And the first vendor was the franchisor that they're a franchisee of, and then they go on to become a bigger vendor. And I've started this franchisee mastermind with franchisees that want to just get better and expand their network. And if anyone's interested, go to franchiseemastermind.com, but it's only for franchisees and it's only 147 bucks a month. But the point of that group is to expand our network. So you went into a joint venture agreement, which is a really simple agreement, but you probably found somebody that had experience in something that you didn't have experience in. And then you had knowledge in something that you guys needed to match your skill sets and experience together. Is that pretty accurate?
that's 100% accurate. There are a lot of people, when you combine two people with joint experiences, they kind of make a whole. My experience in franchising and his experience in technology made us a really good fit. And I also happen to speak German fluently. I lived there for a little while. So that made it even more fun for me.
So I
And
want to stop you
uh,
again because I just want to bring some clarity and understanding on and just some teaching in with this, because you as a franchisee have experience in franchising that a lot of people don't have. And that's valuable. A lot of people don't understand the value that they have just as a franchisee. And then you don't have to have the skill set or the experience level to bring something to the franchisor. You might be a franchisee and you might have a friend in technology or publishing or ads or whatever it is. And so I just want people to expand their thinking to think like, who could I partner with to actually make more money in the franchising world versus just being a franchisee? And I don't mean just as a franchisee as just one level, but there are other ways to expand and to scale, and it may not be just more units as a franchisee. So how did you meet this German friend of yours?
we're at a Google conference, and they had identified his technology as something that would be potentially valuable for multi-location businesses. And he was only over in Europe. So they were like, hey, come to this thing in the US. It's a big franchise conference. His goal in coming over was actually to sell his technology to franchise vendors. After we got to talking, what he ended up with was a business partner. And about 6 months later, we were launching a entity in the US to basically spread his technology to the franchise space here.
Dude, that's awesome. And I'm getting so much of that from franchisors are coming to me right now because I have my foot in the technology, digital marketing, copy and video world. And franchisors they don't really have their foot in that space. So I have so many franchisors reaching out to me to talk to me and want me to partner with them on stuff or giving me some equity for some help. I don't think I've ever talked like this to any other guest on this, but I just want to dive into the inner workings of this to give the audience just an ability to expand their thinking, to think differently. So now here you are with a JV partner, which is a pretty simple agreement at the end of the day, isn't it?
Really simple.
Yeah. So you don't, everyone out there, just as you're thinking about, hopefully you're thinking a little bit different, and you don't have to have some big, massive partnership because they're bringing something to the table. You're bringing something to the table. There's a simple joint venture agreement that's just called a JV agreement. And that's how you can start working together on things like this. So now you have your new partner. You guys have a business. And what was the name of it?
It was called Adfinitely. So
And then how long did you have that business and how big did you grow it and how quickly?
3.5 years, we put, I think it was 50,000 into it. We grew to about 3 to 4 million in annual revenue. I'd say pretty big, pretty fast, and that
Yeah.
was without a lot of capital going into it.
And you bootstrapped it. So very little capital
Bootstrapped
going
it.
into it. And then you had an exit on that. Did
I
they
did.
value
I
that on a cash flow or EBITDA, or did they value that on revenue? And what did they consider that company? Like at the end of the day, was it a SaaS company or what was it?
Yeah, so that it was valued more actually as an agency when it was sold, which is about 10 to 15 cents on the dollar, and it was valued on EBITDA. So
Okay. So looking back, any lessons that you learned? We all value things differently, and franchisees are looking at selling their franchises at different times, and there's different ways to grow your brand or your side hustle based on what that business really is. And so looking back, would you have changed anything in that model to try to get a higher multiple, make it a SaaS company or something like that? Or were you really happy with that?
yeah, so interesting. And Eric, we didn't even talk about this. So you kind of hit your nail on the head. There are actually two instances in my career where I've gone into partnerships, joint ventures with people, and the long-term alignment wasn't necessarily there. In this instance, ended up 3.5 years into it. We were doing a pretty healthy revenue amount, and there were venture capital private equity firms that were like, "Hey, we'll put 5-10 million in, really grow this and create technology and have it in house." That wasn't a ride that my partner wanted to go on. We had a buy sell clause. I ended up selling, and he took over that company. So something I learned really quickly out of that is just, hey, when you're building things for alignment, it's really important to look at yourself and just, where do I want to be in 3, 5,
Mhm.
10 years? And it's actually important to consistently evaluate that, because as you're getting into your next thing, your next deal, your side hustle, whatever is going on, you've got to consistently think, in 3 years or 5 years, would I be happy with this outcome? And then also think about, there's a thought structure, but what are the most likely outcomes? And you can give yourself a worst, a middle, and a best,
Mhm.
and then just apply percentages as to where you think the outcome might fall. And if it's not working, then don't do it.
That's good. That's good
So
advice there. And that buy sell agreement, everybody should have a buy sell agreement in their operating agreement. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And actually, this is something that we're going to be talking about inside my private mastermind. And I'll probably just give everybody, a sample buy sell agreement that I think and it doesn't need to be complicated. And the less complicated it is, the more complicated it will probably be as the business grows, because the business structure looks different as it grows. Did you have a pretty simple buy sell agreement, or at least was it easy to execute?
pretty simple. I don't think exiting any scenario where something's been working so well
Yeah.
is easy to execute. I'm actually more of a fan. There are a couple types of buy sells. It can be like a fixed multiple on EBITDA or a fixed multiple on
Mhm.
profitability. You can do it on revenue. You can also, there's one where you can basically do a name your price,
Yep.
and it's kind of like roulette, Russian roulette. But you name your price, and if the partner doesn't take it, then they have to buy you out at that price. So it's a very simple way of creating a fair valuation for the business based on where you are.
It's like telling my kids, like, they want to split up something that's really good, a cookie. I'm like, okay, whoever splits it, the other person gets to choose which half that they want. And
Yeah,
that's a pretty simple way to look at it. But I like that too. The other, and I just experienced something like that as I was looking at investing into a franchisor that was needing to buy out one of their partners before I invested into it. Same thing. It was like a shotgun clause, or it's just like, here you go. And they didn't know if they were going to end up with the company or they were about ready to get bought out of the company. But that was their simple buy sell. It's like, name the price, and either whoever names it, the other person gets to decide if they want to buy it or step away.
what it means is that at least one party is comfortable with the number that they're buying at.
Yep.
So when the person comes up with that number, it's got to be a number that's pretty fair. Over my career, I've become more a fan of those, because as you progress, things, like you said, things are valued very differently.
Hmm.
And you can't predict how something will be valued in 5 years, because technology can change, the market can change, you can have a pandemic, There's just a lot of things that can
Exactly,
happen.
the things that you can't plan for. It also forces you to look at it from the other person's perspective because you are looking at it as both the buyer and the seller, and people by nature aren't really good at looking at things from different perspectives. And that's one of the things that I try to discipline myself to do is look at things from right now, it's the landlord's perspective. If you're a tenant, you got to look at things through the landlord's perspective or the bank's perspective or your employee's perspective or the customer's perspective. And if you're not good at doing that, this forces you to do it. So I like it. So here you are, you exited that company, and then your next company was Transitiv. Is that right?
That's correct.
So
Yep.
before we get to that, which is going to be a very interesting conversation, people are going to want to listen to what kind of data that you're able to pull out, how you pull it out, and how it's useful. But take us, you're a franchisee, you're in the franchising game. I'm trying to convince you to get to be a part of the franchisee mastermind. So we'll see if you bite or not. Tell us what you own and when you bought it in the process of all of this.
Yeah. First one, 2015, I bought a company called Cherry Blow Dry Bar. And in 2019, I bought multiple territories of OxyFresh carpet cleaning. And then there's a home cleaning concept, which I will likely execute an agreement on in the next week. So
Nice.
being the three brands, I'll probably exit the earliest brand soon, but in the three brands.
And I think it's interesting because you and I know this other brand that you're getting ready to execute, and I know the guy behind the brand. And part of the reason that you're attracted to the brand is the guy behind the brand, right?
Yep. Yeah. So the guy behind the brand is one of the standouts for me in franchising. He is intensely focused on franchisee profitability, and he's intensely focused on the margins that they need to give a good quality of life to their franchisees and make it a great opportunity. His focus, his background, and his career, and just the number of things that he's been exposed to and involved in, and the long term vision for the parent company is actually the major selling point for this brand.
Yeah, and I think that's just a good takeaway for anyone. There's a lot of people that are getting into brands for the item 19 because item 19 looks so incredibly amazing. And the item 19, for those of you that don't know what that is, it's where the franchisor tells you some financial data on some historical performance of franchise locations. And in my humble opinion, these things are very inaccurate in at different times and they might be 100% accurate. I've seen both that are incredibly accurate and some that the numbers have been spun, and I've seen both. You just have it's a double-edged sword. Item 19 gives you something to go off of so you can validate that with franchisees. The challenging thing, if you don't have franchisees to validate it with, then you're going off of just what you think. Now, one of the things that I love to do, like you, Christian, is to understand the man, the woman behind the brand and their track record, their history, and in other brands, and that carries a lot of weight to me, especially if it's a newer brand where I can't validate a lot of the numbers. That is incredibly important. So you and I are definitely on the same page with that. So tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
OxyFresh, and then let's jump into Transitive.
Before I go into that, the man behind it's super important. The item 19 discussion is really interesting. I was looking at an item 19 for a brand today, and come to find out that about 18 locations are redacted, and there are maybe only 50 units or so, or 40 units. And what you start doing is looking at the caveats for why brands or these things are redacted. Those caveats actually are probably the reasons for poor performance. Instead of when an item 19 shows averages, it's like, okay, the average is at 48% or above average. When you see how many locations are redacted, you've got to assume that the vast majority of those locations are below average.
Mm-hmm.
You got to assume at least 75% are below average. So for those out there, when you're reading the item 19, always look for how the locations are not being included, because that's typically a key indicator of success.
Yep.
So even if you buy the brand, you can figure out what to focus on.
100%. 100%. And then, you guys, I have a lot of resources on Franchise Secrets or ilovefranchising.com. So if you want I got a free franchise playbook for everyone there. And so go check that out and make sure you're talking to best piece of advice is talk to franchisees, even with the other brand. If this person's been a part of another brand before, go talk to them and see how happy and they are with them. And that's incredible to be able to do that. So, okay.
Mhm.
So OxyFresh. That's like complete.
Yeah.
That
So
is not sexy. That is not the VC guy, the guy that's been part of cool companies and doing cool stuff and technology. I mean, OxyFresh.
you can make carpet cleaning cool. You'd be surprised. Uh,
Teach us.
OxyFresh, benefit of being a vendor to the franchise space for a long time is you do get to know a lot of the CEOs of the franchisees. You get to know the space pretty well. You get to see how franchisees are performing, and even sometimes, like in the case of OxyFresh, in a past company, I've worked directly with that brand. I had customer success people who talk to all the franchisees on a daily basis. And what better way to get validation into a brand than having a customer success person on the phone talking about how the franchisees are happy?
Mm-hmm.
So being a vendor gives you really unique insight. It's not a sexy concept, but I actually, having been in retail, I fell in love with the service industry for two reasons. The first one is you have no overhead. Typically, you don't have a high rent, so you're not paying 5 to 10 grand a month in retail rent. It's just overhead. You have relatively low labor costs, and you have an opportunity to start a business for anywhere from $50 to $150,000 with a lot of these smaller service concepts. So I really just started to love the service industry. What's interesting, digital marketing actually is great for service businesses. A lot of people who look for carpet cleaning, gutter cleaning, whatever it is, they don't know who they're looking for until they go online and do a search.
Yep.
So taking, again, like you talked about earlier, taking expertise in something, which is digital marketing, and then applying it to an industry that can be greatly impacted by it creates good results. You get a good franchisor along with that, with a good business model, and all of a sudden you can have a really great profitable business.
So you were just ahead of the curve because now all a bunch of franchisees that are in retail really think service is awesome. Now they're wanting to get into the service-based businesses. So, okay, I love the fact that you have a franchising background as a franchisee investor still in the game. If we have time, I want to talk about why you want to buy 30 to 40 territories of service-based businesses in a particular market. I think that'll be a really interesting conversation. But I want to talk about Transitiv. Tell me about that company.
Transitiv is a company that actually we started using that independently. We were using them as an agency, as a white label. And what Transitiv does is it takes all the customer information that you have about your customers, name, address, phone, email, IP address. And we pull all this information in. We pull it in from every platform that you have that information on. So you have it in marketing systems, your CRM, your point of sale. We bring it to a single spot. We can run different AI and machine learning models on the data to figure out who your best customers are and why, and then dynamically target those people on a one-to-one basis on a bunch of different ad channels. The category of company we're in is called a customer data platform. The long story short is you can create a lot of efficiencies in your operations and marketing just by using your existing data and applying that to your existing marketing programs.
I know a lot about this, not a lot meaning enough to be dangerous. People are kind of wondering, like, how can you take what I have in my CRM, my point of sale, and some other things, and really learn about my customer? And this is where we probably get into. There's a lot of data out there, even Facebook. The things that they know about us would probably scare some people. Like, give us a little bit more insight into the world of data.
A couple of things. There are two ways to kind of leverage it. You can own and kind of sort your first party data yourself, so your own data, the stuff in your CRM. But you can also give it to third party companies, and they'll take their data and append information onto what you have and give it back to you. You mentioned Facebook. Facebook and Google, you can just give lists of people to them, and they'll go find more people like that. And an insight into the world of data is basically with an email address, with an IP address, you can typically run someone's information through, it's called an identity graph, and it goes out, it searches, it looks at data points that are on over 300 million people in the US. And you can append their home address, you can append first name, last name, you can append a phone number. You pay for that service. It's typically like 4 or 5 cents a person, but the data that you come back with actually gives you information on the person, and you can now, sort people by, hey, I want a pet owner with 2 kids to do this carpet cleaning service for.
That's exactly it. You give a little bit of data, they go and they compare that again. They find out more on that person, and then they take that against bigger databases and data points. And like, there's a lot out there. The cell phone companies, what they have. I mean, this is big business.
Yeah, I'd say the hottest thing we're kind of selling right now, mobile device ID data.
Mhm.
We can actually figure out where someone is within about a meter, so 3 feet, and we can geofence an area, so someone's store, and if they've been there in the past month, we can target that person with ads. So it's great for competitive targeting, and it's also great for bringing back your existing customers that you actually know nothing about. So if you're a restaurant, you've got maybe 10% of your people identified through your loyalty program. The other 90% you don't know how to market to, but you know they like your restaurant.
Yep.
So put one of the geofences on there. It's right around your restaurant. Now you can very inexpensively market to people who've been there in the last month and make sure they're coming back.
Yep. It's amazing. Some people are like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this could happen." Who is buying this from you, and what are they doing with this type of information?
Yeah, so there are a couple byproducts of what Transitive does. The first is we link together all this customer information. We pull it into one spot, and that allows us to segment these customer lists and then deliver them to marketing agencies so that you can easily market off this information. We can also use it for our direct marketing. The second thing is it gives us almost perfect attribution into which marketing programs drive sales. So we can see a cost per acquisition by marketing channel, and we have a machine learning model that actually prescribes budgets to franchisees on a local level based on the marketing programs they're running. It'll tell you, hey, you should spend more on Facebook, less on Google, more on this display advertising, simply based on data and results. So it typically creates like 10 to 20 to 30% efficiencies in people's marketing program. That means you either spend 20% less, or you can spend the same and get 20% more results.
Awesome. So if anyone's out there interested in something like this, they just want to learn about it. You're part of the Franchise Tribe Facebook group, so they can just hit you up in the Franchise Tribe Facebook group. They can go to a website. Like, what's the website where they can go to just to kind of learn about what you're doing?
Yeah, if you go to www.transitiv.io, it's transitiv.io. We've got contact forms on there. I try to write blog articles as much as I can. There's a cool one on there about dominoes that I put up a little while ago, so you can definitely learn about it there.
So you guys should go there, check that out if that's something that you're interested in, or you think your franchisor might be interested in, because they're the ones that Transitive works with, is a franchisor who in turn works with all the franchisees. So there's more that we could go into there because of the ads and the things that you guys do there. It's a VC backed company, right? You've got money from a venture capital firm.
Yeah, so we have money from a venture capital. We've got about $1.7 million in funding, and we're growing very, very fast. Being in the VC world, you're just on these fast growth trajectories. Even through COVID, we've actually managed to grow a little bit. And it's mostly because people want to stop wasting marketing dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if there's a time that I'm going to figure out where the inefficiencies are, we should figure it out right now.
I love it, man. And you're going hard on franchising right now as well. So Let's dive into that just for a little bit. You want to open up about, get 30 to 40 territories of a service-based brand or brands. Why?
Great question. So I've been investing in businesses in the North Metro Atlanta area, and by targeting that area specifically, there are probably about 2 million households in the area that I'm targeting. Through having about 40 service business territories, I would have information on about 75% of the population in that area, and I'd very quickly be able to prescribe which services a consumer might need next. By focusing on a specific geography, you can actually leverage customer data across brands. So taking what I do at Transitiv, and you can apply it to get upsells and referrals for your existing service companies. And I've seen it start to fractionally work, like marginally work already. You've got the mastermind group. The guy that runs all this for me, he's part of a BNI group, but effectively we're creating our own BNI.
Yep.
And if we have referrals all within one company, then our cost per acquisition for marketing goes way down. And that just increases the profitability of the business.
That's exactly it. Like as we're growing the roofing franchise, we're looking at other brands that could be complementary to that. So we could have one franchisee in a certain market that owns multiple brands, and they're all, once they get into they do someone's roof, they're looking around and they know that, oh, they need the driveway done, or they need this done, or whatever it is on the exterior, maybe it's interior. And that's what franchisors are doing right now. They're like Neighborly, and there's a number of different companies. It used to be the Dwyer Group, but that's what they're doing. And franchisees are following suit. And in the service-based business, it's really easy to do that because you're in front of the customer, and customers want ease. And so all it takes is, having extra data to market to them. And then if you can do one thing, you can do another thing. And they would rather just have one person that is their go-to person for a lot of this stuff. So yeah, I'm talking to brands every day that have service-based companies that they want to franchise because I want to buy more of those brands. So you're doing the same thing, except in a large area. One of the challenges that you're going to face is that you can't get into a brand that's established because it's going to be sold, because Atlanta is one of the hot markets. Same with Raleigh and Denver and Dallas and Houston. Those markets go fast for franchises. So you're going to have to get in early on. And that's one of the reasons you're talking to our mutual friend, because you are early on in this brand, but you're early on with somebody that you trust. So it makes sense.
We want to be in the home. So Maid Service is the first brand we're doing. We're going to be a trusted advisor in the home. That person's there every week so they can call out the different services that people might need. But you're absolutely right in that we looked at a lot of established maid services, and there's just not the territory availability that we need. Their business models, frankly, are too old to actually make a model like what we're doing work.
Yep. That is fantastic, man. Well, any last bits of wisdom, parting advice for the listeners?
Yeah, I would just say, as you grow and as you expand your businesses, focus on making data-driven decisions. And whether that's data-driven through marketing, data-driven through operational and routing software, data-driven through employee like availability and scheduling, they're franchisees, and also franchisees don't really leverage the data that they have, and they ask even less of the franchisor for all of the rolled up data so that they can use that across the brand. So as franchisees, I'd say we have to do a better job of getting this big data out of the franchisor so that we can apply it at a scalable way at a local level.
Awesome, man. Well, look forward to getting to know you more and watching your company grow. Thanks for coming on.
You as well. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.